Sorry, I hope you can see that now. My apologies.
Yeah, that's all
So
good.
I'll just run quickly. So thank you for joining this session. This is a book club session, and we are going to discuss women in books that shift the view. First of all, thank you for joining us this session. So this session is being recorded, and the session will be uploaded to the YouTube channel of the conference. So I'll go right ahead in introducing our first speaker. So our first speaker is Penny Reynolds, all the way from Australia, and she will be talking to us about Map of Weapon Destruction, book by Cathy O'Neil. Over to you, Penny.
Thanks, Edith. Actually, I'm in America, not Australia, but that doesn't
Oh,
really
okay.
matter.
Thank you. Sorry, my apologies.
That's okay. So Cathy O'Neil got her PhD in mathematics from Harvard, and then after teaching at Barnard, she became a hedge fund analyst. So she had a ringside view of the forces which shaped the great 2008 financial meltdown, which affected so many people. So the themes of this book is not so much about big data itself as the algorithms that process them. And the entire theme is that anything that can be measured can be manipulated. So what she defines as weapons of mass destruction, which actually which are the algorithms, they have three dimensions which make them so destructive: opacity, scale, and damage. And the damage that they're caused is mostly because of feedback loops that traps the victims, mostly women, people of color, and the poor. They trap the victims in these cycles of disadvantage, which just accelerates and exploits them. So she gives three examples. One is the value-added evaluation system for teachers, which is still actually ongoing in the US. So teachers are evaluated on the basis of algorithms, and low-performing teachers are fired. The problem is, as she points out, is that they are so variable that a high-performing teacher one year may score in the basement the next year. So there's absolutely no consistency. And because the algorithms are essentially secret, you cannot appeal them. The second example she gives was the 2008 recession, which was fueled by credit default swaps and mortgage-based securities. And then finally, she talks about the US Today News and World Reports on university rankings, which are essentially meaningless because, first of all, they don't measure what people really need to know. And secondly, they're gamed always to the university's advantage. So all of these systems actually are gamed to the advantage of the few, and they penalize the powerless. Another example of algorithms, which she touches on briefly at the end of the book, is the polarization of American society. It's not only political, although that's certainly the most obvious divide, it's also informational. But they are deeply entwined. They're mutually reinforcing in the United States. And this is because of the increased fragmentation of media landscapes. People consume news from their sources, which are fed to them by these big algorithms and by data scraping. Okay, so that's really it. The challenge to this is, as it was pointed out in the 2025 Nobel Prize in Economics winners, is that what we really need to combat this is more oversight, more effective policing, and policies which are needed to manage this.
Great, thank you, Penny, for that quick recap. Just to say to our audience that you can put some comments or questions in the chat for at the end of the session. And then next, I'll introduce our next speaker, Chaitra, who is going to talk to us about data feminism.
Hi, everyone. Hopefully you're having a good day so far. So the book that I'm going to be discussing is Data Feminism by Catherine D'Ignazio and Lauren F. Klein, two professors in the United States. It was published in 2020, so it's sort of the most recent, I think, of the three books discussed in this session. The authors frame their work by sort of listing and discussing in each chapter their 7 principles of data feminism. I think it's helpful for me to sort of read their definition of data feminism first before continuing onwards, so you sort of have a sense of where they're coming from. So they define it as a way of thinking about data, both their uses and their limits, that is informed by direct experience, by commitment to action, and by intersectional feminist thought. So I will sort of admit I do not quite fit the scholar activist mold by any means, but there are some statistical ideas in this book that I do think are good reminders for being an ethical data scientist or a statistician in modern day. So I'll give a few examples, mostly using statistical terminology, since that is what I'm more familiar with. So they do have a good discussion about how data is sort of less objective than it appears to be, especially when, you know, printed charts and graphs come across simply because they're numerical to seem just trustworthy on the basis of being quantified. So they make a discussion about that, and they sort of go on to talk about how everything needs to be interpreted, looking at, you know, you might need to have a discussion with domain experts and also the people about whom you're collecting data. They may have a better sense of what is important in their lives. So in statistics, we also talk about, as you know, the data generating process and to understand the mechanisms by which our data is created. And that is often a helpful exercise to think about where are the sources of bias, because some things may get recorded or not, depending on how the form is written or who has access to the form and so forth. My third example is about generalizability. Sorry?
Time out.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Apologies that we are running behind time. And finally, we are going to hear from Lucy talking to us about Invisible Woman by Criado Perez. Over to you, Lucy.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm going to talk about Invisible Women, Exposing Data Bias in a World Designed for Men, written by Criado Perez, who's a feminist campaigner from London. A key focus or thesis of the book is the gender data gap. That's the idea that a persistent lack of data about women and their experiences has produced a world designed around man as a default, or the default male. The book contains many recognizable everyday examples that help the reader to understand the gender data gap and highlight how it affects women's day-to-day lives. For example, the ever-present women's toilet queue, how we have a longer wait to use the loo, the gender pay gap and its components, including invisible and undervalued labor, pocket inequality and the incompatible sizes of smartphones for smaller hands, and the default male crash test dummy and ineffective seatbelts. CCP outlines how these seemingly small inconveniences have a larger impact on women's lives through high rates of injury and misdiagnosis, wasted time, and the economic impact of systematic underinvestment. One of the more striking sections of the book, Going to the Doctor, critiques current medical practice and the emphasis on male. The section outlines the historic exclusion of women from clinical trials and how this results in misdiagnosis and inadequate treatment for women. CCP raises how women's health issues, such as endometriosis and autoimmune conditions, are under-researched and symptoms often dismissed as psychological, not to mention the dismissal of women's pain. All of this culminating in the majority of medical knowledge, drug dosing and diagnostic criteria being based on the default male biology and healthcare systems which are structurally unequal. While rage-inducing at times, the book also outlines some good news stories showing the huge progress that can arise when efforts are taken to address the imbalance. For example, in clearing paths and walkways from snow before roads, prioritizing the way that women typically travel over the ways that men typically travel has a positive impact on multiple groups, not just women. The relatable examples alongside clear and direct communication of some pretty complex sciences gives the book a broad appeal to audiences outside of statisticians and data professionals. It sparked many conversations amongst family and friends who aren't usually so enthused to talk about statistics or scientific articles with me. The book does conclude that the gender data gap is not caused by intentional discrimination, but systematic neglect. And an easy solution is for us to sex disaggregate our data and start combating the data gap, something I think we can all commit to doing. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. Before we go into Q&A, I would like to give our speakers at least have 30 seconds each to sort of unpack the message from the book. So just link it to the theme of the session. How does that link to women thriving in data professions as a theme for our conference? Starting with you, Penny.
Sorry, what was the question again?
So, like the message from the book, you just summarized for us. How should we link that to the current theme of the conference, i.e., thriving in our environment?
Well, it's the recognition that algorithms and big data are increasingly ruling our lives, and as Lucy's book points out, is that they're systematically biased against women altogether.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to insist on more clarity and oversight of these algorithms which are making policy decisions for us and demand more accountability. And that was actually the theme of the winners of this year's Nobel Prize in Economics as well.
Great, thank you. Chaitra?
And I think I can just second what Penny said. This book had more examples along those lines. They definitely have their own angle of how to be a data feminist. But I think the underlying principle is, practice your statistics ethically, think about many different perspectives, and, get your foot in the door. I think those are probably maybe my opinions than theirs, but I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. And Lucy, I know you just finished.
Yeah, I think if there is time, I think one of the key things that comes out, as well as what Penny and Chaitra have said, is this is affecting women, but now we also need to take it further and go intersectional and start thinking how we can use what we've learned from the books, what's already out there, look at what else is missing. If women were missing, who else is missing, and how do we take the lessons learned from those and carry them on further?
Great, thank you. We are at time. Just going to check if there's any questions in the comments. Anita?
Well, thank you, ladies. Amazing presentation. Sorry, the time was not enough for you to express. But we have no questions. We just have a comment.
Great.
Those who are interested in reading the books discussed here, they've been listed by
Thank you.
Meredith. Yeah.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you
Well,
for your time.
Thank you so much for your assistance, Bonita. And thank you so much to our speakers and our audience. So that is our end of the session today. Thank you.